Kerry Siggins, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about your new and exciting book.
Thank you, Mark. I am so glad to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me to talk to you today.
So, before we get into talking about your book, you always show up with so much energy and passion. Ever since we met several years ago, you're always the same that way. Where'd that come from?
People ask me that all the time, and I'm not sure because I only am who I am. I only know myself as high energy. But I have been doing a ton of research on dopamine because of my past substance abuse issues. And I think it's because I have a high baseline of dopamine that it just can keep me going and all that energy. So that's what I'm going to chalk it up to is that dopamine.
Okay, sounds good. So you wrote this new book, The Ownership Mindset, and I'm sure it was an incredible amount of work. What inspired you to take on this challenge to write this book?
I've always been a writer. And in fact, in 2015, I was kind of like trying to figure out what's next. I love my company, but I felt like there was something that was missing. And I was out for a long run. I'm a big trail runner, and I was listening to, some silly audiobook about, finding purpose and meaning in your work, and it said go back to doing what you love to do as a kid. And I love to write. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to write. I'm going to write a book. But I haven't practiced writing in a really long time, only emails, and that's not going to get it done. So I said, I'm going to start a blog. So I went home from my run and I built my first blogging website and I started practicing. And that was October of 2015. So I knew that it was always going to be part of my journey. And I just wanted to make sure that I had cultivated my voice and matured my voice through practice. And then when the pandemic hit, I thought, this is the perfect time. I'm not traveling around the world. I have time and I might as well do something productive. So that's when I started to pull the whole idea of the ownership mindset together.
So how long did it take to write the book?
It took about a year to write it, and I wrote it on weekends. I had to figure out my writing style. I tried to write like 500 words a day, and that didn't work for me because I'm the kind of writer that it takes a little while to get started. So then I had to do it on weekends where I could write for 4 or 5 hours. So you know what I did? I skipped the ski week, like skiing on the weekends for a great ski winter in Colorado when nobody was here skiing, but to write my book. So I wrote it on Saturdays and Sundays in about a year.
So just to tease people about reading your book, you have an incredible story. And so you've had some material setbacks in your life. And it's amazing what you had to deal with, what you overcame. And so just tease us a little bit. What was a couple of these major setbacks that you've had? How did you overcome them? And what did you learn?
That's a great question because there's so many, and I'm so grateful for them because it's in the hard moments, it's in those biggest mistakes that we make in life that real growth and real change happens. And I've had a couple of those. The first one was going to engineering school and realizing that I wasn't meant to be an engineer, but not wanting to quit. And that was a big inflection point for a couple of reasons. One, it taught me the fortitude, how to get through something that was really hard, that I wasn't passionate about. But I also got through something really hard that I wasn't passionate about. And so I kind of lost myself in that. But I look back to that time, and even though it kind of started a downfall towards substance abuse issues, I'm really, really grateful that I stuck it out and graduated with an engineering degree because I would not be sitting in this seat today if I did not have that there. So, even though it was a really tough time in my life, just having the gumption and the fortitude to stick it out, that taught me a lot about myself. The second big inflection point was in 2006 when I overdosed on a cocktail of mixed substances. After I graduated, I was lost and got caught up in the wrong crowd, mixed with self-esteem issues and a multitude of things. And I used substances to escape. And it all came crashing down on Labor Day of 2006 when I accidentally overdosed. And that is actually the day I'm most grateful for in my whole life, because that was the day that I said I'm going to change. I'm going to go after the life that I know I can live, go after the potential that I know is within me, and stop living a life for other people and stop living a life of making poor decisions. And so that was an inflection point of what got me to Durango, to Stone Age, to where I am now. So those are like the two big, like, non-work ones, is sticking it out through engineering school and then bouncing back to rebuild my life after an overdose.
So, what advice would you give to other people struggling with this? They're feeling hopeless and they don't know how to get off the current treadmill that they're on. How do you help them how do you help them see what you saw or were beginning to see, to find a path to just take a step in that direction? How does one do that?
Well, all I know is my journey. So this is the advice that I would give a person, not knowing anybody's particular situation. But most of the time, we stay stuck because we're afraid, and we're even though we might be miserable in our lives, the fear of what's on the other side and not knowing what's on the other side often holds us back from making those tough decisions. And for me, hitting rock bottom, like looking at my choices as I can continue this lifestyle that is probably going to kill me, or I can take this huge risk and completely uproot my life. That was the point that I needed to say that the fear of making the change was safer than staying stuck. And so I think it's really important for people to examine their fears, right? We're not going to move if we let that fear overcome us. And so I asked myself these questions when I was trying to make the decision to leave Austin, and that is, what am I most afraid of? What happens if I leave and I fail? What happens if I leave and I succeed? What's the worst thing that could possibly happen? What's the best thing that could possibly happen? And when I put all those things down on paper, the answer was obvious. Like, changing my life and taking that step into the unknown was the right thing for me. But you've got to examine your relationship with fear and where it's coming from and really ask yourself those questions. That's the first step to being able to take that next small action to change your life.
So before we get into what you have achieved at Stone Age, and especially culturally, how did you convince the ownership of Stone Age to take a bet on you?
I don't, I don't know if I convinced them. It's really funny because I try to put myself in their shoes, and they had to have been like, how are we going to make this decision to hire this 28-year-old young woman who is clearly has a lot of potential but doesn't have a lot of experience? Now, they didn't know about my substance abuse issues at that time. And I had to imagine it was so scary. I don't think it was as much as me convincing them as it was them wanting something different for their company. John and Jerry, our two founders, are two of the most visionary, generous men I have ever had the opportunity of knowing. And I think that's what they looked at themselves and they said, we can go down this route of a traditional candidate, but this is something that's different. And we've always done something different. We've always been disruptive. And so why not take a chance? If it doesn't work, we always can go down the more traditional route. So I think it was more about their vision and them wanting to do something different, to be a different type of company, than it was me. Because during my interview process, I said, well, I've never done that, but this is how I would think about it. ad nauseum because I had never run a company before and I couldn't, BS my way through it. It was obvious that I did not have that experience. So I just tried to show up as honestly as I could and hope that they could see that I had potential, this raw potential. If they invested in me, that I would do the work to make it happen. And I think that that's what they saw. But they just wanted something that was different for their company, and so they decided to take a risk.
So you're now the CEO of Stone Age, and how many years have you been CEO now?
14.
Very impressive. So you've transformed also the culture over there with this, the title of your book even, the ownership mindset. So many companies try to do that and create this ownership mindset and they just fail to do it. Why is it that so many companies fail to do it? And what advice would you give them based on your learnings on how to do this?
So I think there's three reasons why people fail. One, I don't think that they really dig into who they are as a company. Like most values that you see on the wall of companies, they could stand for any company. Anybody can have integrity and customer service and honesty and all of those things. And those to me are, I don't know, like those are givens. Those are required to run and build a good company. And I think that they don't really go deep into the DNA. So, first and foremost, you have to understand the DNA of the company so that you can really make sure that it's crystal clear and it feels authentic to people. That's when people don't buy into, the vision that you're putting together, the culture you're trying to build, because there's a disconnect between what management says and what everybody experiences, then a big cultural shift doesn't happen. So we really honed in on the DNA, like why John and Jerry built the company, why it had been so successful throughout its history, and let's build on that. The second thing is I think that a lot of people don't pull in people from all areas of the organization. When we built what we call the Own It mindset, which is our culture, it wasn't just me and my senior team in the room. We had a multitude of people coming in and sharing their experiences of what it was like to work at Stone Age and what was great and what needed to change. And so we had a really good, I don't know, read on what people really thought of our culture. And I think that that helped set a much better foundation. And then the third thing, I don't think that they write it down. So we wrote down the Own It mindset, and it is our mantra, it is our marching orders, it is our success blueprint. And you can't do a big cultural shift if you can't paint a clear picture of what success looks like. What does it mean to be part of this culture? What does it mean for me as an individual, for my team, and for the world? And so we really took a painstaking amount of time to articulate the Own It mindset so that every single person would understand what it means and how they contributed to it or took away from it. And then we went out and built this whole program around owning it. And so I think that people make the mistake of not really doing the real work of figuring out your culture. I think a lot of people delegate that to like it's an HR thing. It's not. It's a leadership thing, and it requires everybody in the company to be able to have a say in it to kind of percolate throughout the whole organization for people to buy into it.
How many people work for your company?
We have 220 employees globally.
220 globally, and you operate where around the globe?
So we're headquartered in Durango, Colorado, and we have offices in Houston, Baton Rouge, Cleveland, Reno, Birmingham, UK, Rotterdam, Netherlands, and Bahrain, just outside of Saudi Arabia, and in Australia.
Give us an example of when somebody that tested you on your core values that worked in your organization. I love asking you questions and you don't know what's coming. It's hope it's as much fun for you as it is for me. Uh, so, uh, so give us an example. Somebody's not living one of your core values. It's clear. It's frustrating. What'd you do about it?
There's two things that we do when people don't live up to our core values. One, we always give them a chance, right? are we as leaders failing to help them understand, to buy into, to connect to our core values? So nobody here ever gets let go without a chance to work on it. And we are very, very clear about what our core values are. And so everybody has a chance to work on it. But I'm a big believer that I want every single person in my company to be an additive value, additive, positive energy to our culture. And if someone isn't a fit, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a bad company or that they're a bad person. It just means it's not a fit. And instead of getting hung up on that or take it personally, let's just have an honest conversation. So then we do what's called mindful transitions. And so we help that person leave. So it's not just like, oh, 2 weeks, we'll give you a 2 week severance and you're out, right? We give people an opportunity to go look for another job. Like, how can we transition this so that there's a soft landing and that it doesn't have to be this big negative thing. So we work really, really hard to help our employees who aren't a fit leave the organization in a really positive way to go find a place where they can thrive and succeed.
So you've had incredible growth at Stone Age, and you write about that a lot in your book. Share with us the vision for Stone Age. Where is Stone Age going, and where is Kerry Siggins taking it?
Uh, I am so excited about the future. So, for those of you who don't know what we do, we make what I call high-tech squirt guns on steroids. So we make industrial cleaning equipment that uses high-pressure water to clean the dirtiest of dirty places. So refineries, chemical plants, food processing plants, anywhere you'd use high-pressure water to clean. And so we are on a journey of transitioning from a manufacturing company to a technology company. So what started with tools that you screw on the end of a hose and shove down a pipe, now we're making autonomous robots that collect data that are helping our customers with their ESG and sustainability goals of using less water and reducing air emissions. And where all of that's going to lead is to a path of, I think, fairly significant growth. I mean, our goal is to be $1 billion company in 2032. Most importantly, though, not just to be $1 billion company, because lots of companies do that, but it's because I want to create 1,000 millionaires. This employee ownership program that we have is an ability for our employees who work hard, who stay loyal to us, and embrace this own it culture that we have. They can create true, meaningful wealth by working for us. And I think that's the best legacy that I can leave behind, is that not only do people hopefully become better human beings because they work for us and this culture of caring and support and unleashing human potential, but they also get to benefit from the success and build true meaningful wealth for themselves in jobs that you would never think, oh, this person could be a millionaire. So that's what we're trying to do. And you can't do that if you're not building tremendous value for your customers. So we look at those two things, right? How does the employee experience and the customer experience intertwine to really drive our growth and our value creation?
So how many millionaires did you say that you were going to create?
1,000. We've already created
One.
122 in this very beginning journey that we've been on, and I'm really, really excited about building upon that.
So I've heard you talk. You talked at the Make Big Happen Summit. I've heard you talk on a podcast about your ESOP and how you guys did it, and that really goes hand in hand with the title of your book, The Ownership Mindset. What did you see happen with your employees when they became owners? How did that transform their mindset? And what's been hard about having a company that's owned by its employees?
Yeah. So I think ownership truly is a mindset. I mean, if you think about it, we own things that we don't care about, that we don't treat like we own it. And we don't own things that we take tremendous amount of ownership. And that's what we try to help our employees understand here, is that it's a mindset. And yes, you do own this company, but if you don't embrace the mindset of an owner, then you are going to miss out on the purpose and meaning you can find in your work, because when you have that, it's more than just a paycheck. So we've had to help people understand that, though. Like, if most of us come from, the corporate world, where that is not what they want you to do. They want you to perform, results, results, results. And so a lot of people are afraid to show up as their whole selves. They're afraid to give feedback, to keep it real. They're afraid to, say, hey, I don't think this is working that well. Let's try a new idea. And so we have to teach people that it's safe. It's safe to speak up. It's safe to make mistakes. It's safe to put in your effort. And that getting feedback is really a gift. It doesn't have to be a scary thing. So we've had to learn that not everybody comes in here with that mindset, but that doesn't mean that they can't grow that mindset. We have to invest in them. So it's been a really interesting process. Some people just like get it and they're like, yes, this is me. And others are a little bit more skeptical. Like, is this really real? Are you sure you really want to hear what I have to say? And it takes a little bit more time to build it. But I get asked all the time, right? How do you find employees who have the own it mindset? And I was like, well, we don't, we have to grow it. So I think it's a really important aspect that if you want a culture of engagement where people really do take more ownership of their work, you have to cultivate it.
If so many people are owners, you have to have a cadence of communication to understand and explain to them what it is that they own and how they monetize that and how this path to 1,000 millionaires is amazing. How often and how do you show them that path?
Yes, so it takes a lot to educate people around what ownership means. I mean, let's face it, most people don't have a lot of financial acumen, especially when it comes around, understanding financial statements and P&Ls. So, the first thing that we do is we teach everybody basic about basic financial performance. We teach people how to read a P&L and a balance sheet and a cash flow statement. Super simple. It doesn't have to be, complex where you're looking at, every single GL. But that part of being an owner is responsibility for understanding. And so we're going to teach you what this looks like. We share our financial performance every single month. And so there's a repetitive process that we go through that helps people see it over and over again. In terms of the ESOP, we do multiple education events. So, throughout onboarding throughout the year, and then we have an annual shareholder meeting where we go over what the stock price increase look like, what new shares go into their ESOP accounts, and what that means for the increased value. And so we're talking. I bet you we talk about the ESOP and the structure once a month, maybe every other month, but almost every month, because it's really important for people to understand it. And you have to hear it over and over and over again to be able to, grasp the kind of complexity that comes along with the ESOP. So we're very, very committed to financial acumen and making sure people understand what's going on inside of the company, so that, not so they feel like we're being transparent and that they understand and that they can make an impact, right? When now we're saying, hey, we need to tighten our belts, everybody understands why, and everybody understands exactly where they can do it. Like, that's super helpful, rather than, a manager coming in and saying, okay, everybody, this is what we have to do. So the investment that we put into teaching people about financial statements and developing their financial acumen has definitely paid off, with them understanding what's going on within the company, and then helping make decisions for growth or for cost cutting when we have to go through those exercises.
You have worked with a CEO coach for a number of years now. What have you learned about that process working with a CEO coach? What's it done for you, and what's been the hard part of working with a coach?
So I love coaching. Working with my first coach changed my life forever. It was right when I started at Stone Age, or became CEO at Stone Age, and I had no idea what I was doing. And my first coach really helped me understand my leadership style, and helped me kind of like knock off some of the rough edges. And so that's when I became a huge fan of coaching, just a huge believer that we need people in our corners. We need people to keep it real with us. And the higher up in the organization you go, the less likely it is that you're going to get raw, honest feedback. So that was my first experience with a coach. I reached out to CEO Coaching International when wanted to take my company to the next level. So I think I've read, I can't even remember what book it was, but anyway, I read some book that like totally inspired me to go big. And so I read your book, Go Big, and I was like, I want to reach out to these guys and see if they can really help me take my company to the next level. And it's been so amazing. The thing I really appreciate about the coaching structure I have now is that it provides me structure. I'm an idea person and I'm a visionary, and that sometimes doesn't translate to good execution. And so I really appreciate the structure and the accountability that my coach Chris has given me, and it's helped me look at my business differently, and see things that I wouldn't have seen if I didn't take the time to really analyze the decision making process, and creating a process, the cadence for strategic meetings, and how you assess your performance and your metrics. So that's helped me absolutely be much more disciplined, which has helped me grow the company. The hard part is that it's forced me to be more disciplined, right? I'm like, I don't want to talk about this right now. I want to talk about the big growth stuff. I don't want to like dive into, the intricacies of some of these things. And so it's great. I love it. But when you purposely have somebody there who has a different style than you, that is making you slow down, sometimes that can be frustrating, but it is the best thing that can possibly happen to a CEO, right? Having people who can be that kind of that counterpart and have strengths where your strengths aren't. And that's been such a gift for me, even if it has, sometimes made me slow down and do things that I don't necessarily feel like I'm good at, right? But I need to be good at, because that's what makes a good CEO, is the discipline to execute consistently over and over and over again. That's what coaching has really brought to me.
It's a few years from now, and people see you and they were touched by your book. What's the biggest message, Kerry, you want your readers to walk away from, having taken the time to really dig in and be with you on your journey through your book?
Yeah, I think two things. First, the number one job of a leader is to unleash the potential in their employees. And when you do that, you truly drive results. And I think so many people, so many leaders just focus on results, and that's really important. But sometimes the fact that our success is built on our team, right? Having the right people on our teams and developing them and growing them. We cannot do this alone. And if you look at your number one job as unleashing the talents and the skills and the goals in people with that people have, and helping them live their dreams, you're going to build a great company who drives results. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing is, don't be afraid to share some of your flaws. I share my flaws in my book. I am not a perfect person. I absolutely have trauma, and that has impacted my life. I have made poor decisions, and I have a strong personality, and I'm okay with that. Right? I spent so many years of my life, from the time I was 4 years old until I overdosed and I said, that's it, I'm done, trying to be somebody other than myself. And when I just embraced my flaws and I worked on them, and I said, I'm just going to try to be the very best person I can, but share these flaws and connect with people on what makes us human, and that is that we don't do everything right. We make bad decisions, right? We hurt people. We get hurt. And you talk about it, it creates the most wonderful, amazing relationships. It allows you to be real to your employees. And we need real leaders more than we ever have. Not leaders that we hold on a pedestal, not leaders who hold themselves on a pedestal, real leaders who are like, you know what? I know what it's like to be in your shoes, because I've been there, and I can relate. I can share these stories about how I overcame my mistakes and have been able to rebuild my life. It's so powerful when you can connect with your employees in that way. So you don't have to do it like me, where I bear it all, but don't be afraid to admit your flaws. Don't be afraid to face your flaws. They're what make you beautiful. They're what make you human.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kerry, for sharing that. And you're so open and transparent, and you're so inspiring to so many. Every time I see you, you're always the same, energetic, passion, full of life, and that's got to be infectious to all of those around you. I'm sure you're an inspiration to your friends, your family, your rock star son, and tell us, where does one go to get this book of yours, The Ownership Mindset? I know you're releasing next week.
Next week on October 17th, and it's available on Amazon, at Barnes and Noble, so you can order it there, or you can go into your local bookstore, and if they don't have it, they will order it for you. But it's super easy to go into Amazon or Barnes and Noble and have it shipped directly to your door.
And for people like you and me that prefer to listen to it on Audible and route running, you made an Audible as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's not out yet. It should be out probably by the end of October, early November, and that'll be on all of the different platforms. But you'll be able to get it on Audible as well. So I've read it, which is a very humbling experience reading your own book. So as you know.
I do know, and you know what? I always enjoy when the author shares their own story, their own passion, and thank you for doing that. I'm sure people will appreciate hearing it in your words, your story. They'll be relatable to them. Thank you again, Kerry, for coming on, sharing your story. Congratulations on your new book. I wish you much success, and I can't wait to see you again and celebrate this new book with you.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.